Are there any interesting or notable fraud instances that you've looked at in recent years that you think would be good to add here?
Well, I'm sad to say that we have had a spike of a number of small entities with that we found fraud. And one is pretty close to us here in Olympia, but the city of Morton, it was highly reported, about $900,000 from a small town. And a town that we had, or a city that we had made some recommendations previously and weren't followed, and to the point that $900,000 later, there was an issue of fraud that we were able to ascertain. The town of Cusick, which is in eastern Washington, had their city manager, city administrator, pretty much take all the money out of their bank account, about $277,000 for a small town. That's significant. So we've seen some higher numbers at these smaller entities. Many times fraud is found by the entity themselves. But just to close the loop on that, we did experience one that we found for the Office of Administrative Hearings, smaller, medium-sized agency here in state government that had one of their employees that had taken close to $900,000. He was able to control the amount of input that he could have with regards to doing this scam, and he was able to accomplish it. And so, but we were able to find that fraud that was existing. So.
We've talked about the challenges to audit these inauditable or unauditable governments. Can you talk a little bit about that issue and if there's been any change or significant progress on that from your perspective?
Oh yeah, that's a really good news story, because we did have a problem. When I first was state auditor about 8 years ago, 8.5 years almost now, years ago, where we had over 40 government types, special purpose districts mainly, who were not providing us their financial information. And I don't care if you just get a small amount of the public's money, you are still responsible for being accountable to those dollars, to the public you serve. And so it was really with irrigation districts. We had drainage district number 5 up in King County. That was probably the poster child for a problem that really elevated this, for us to be able to, for me as a brand new auditor, to come in and say, this is unacceptable. Everyone needs to be held accountable, whether you get state dollars, local dollars, or federal dollars. And so we work with the state legislature. They came up with some legislation that really gave some teeth, so the legislature could help with this issue. We got legislation that if you did not provide those financial records that we needed to do the audit, to be accountable to the public and to be transparent, that you would not be able to have those dollars. The county could hold back on those dollars. That's a really good incentive for folks to provide those money, that accountability. You know, how are you spending the money? Are you spending it appropriately? So forth and so on. Are you having open public meetings? You know, are you doing all the things that you need to be doing, that the public expects, the law requires? And so, anyways, that was a good news story. We reduced that number of 40 several years ago down to just a handful right now.
Do you have a guiding philosophy for your team, for your agency, when heading into one of these audits? Does it vary by situation, or is there anything to keep in mind? You know, like is there anything any motto on the wall or anything like that?
Yeah, well, we do. We want to be constructive. We want to educate government on what they can do themselves to be accountable to the publics that they serve. So whether you're a small entity, a fire district, a water district, a sewer district, one of those special purpose districts in Washington, or whether you are a large entity, whether you're King County, whether you're Spokane County, or a city, a large city, it doesn't matter. We audit all of government. So we try to educate them on the non-audit side of our house on having good internal controls. So it's incumbent upon governments to have good internal controls. If you're DSHS, you should have as strong of internal controls as if you're a small state agency. It's incumbent upon us, the public expects that of us, and so we have a term, of course, that we use is trust but verify. So trust your employees, but verify. Have those checks and balances in place.